years old, around there, and interconnecting blocks typical for much older kids, say maybe 10 years old. So this is really quite a gap that he's covering. Play and spatial learning at early ages has been shown to be critical for future success in STEM subjects, particularly mathematics. Chris Cochella, welcome to Cool Science Radio.
Thank you, John. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you here because since we started taking a peek at your company and the products, and now we have them here in front of us, Lynn, we're playing with these. This really could be a game changer.
Well, we like to think so. Bridging that educational gap between 3 years old, 5 years old, and 10 years old was a big missing component.
Now, what was the genesis for this company?
The genesis was I was working in hands-on science in my kids' elementary school, and I became aware of the scarcity of STEM teaching and employees trained in STEM skills. And I brought home an engineering toy for my son, who was 5 at the time, and he could see how it worked and wanted to work with it, but the snap connections were too difficult. And I thought, hey, here's an opportunity to bridge the gap, like you said, between regular stacking blocks and interconnecting toys and bring that engineering play into earlier ages.
Okay. So, of course, when we think, Chris, about building toys, we all think of what we grew up with, Legos and, what were the log ones called?
Lincoln Logs.
Lincoln Logs. Thank
Logs.
you. It's been a long time since I've been a kid. But I have seen, and I guess I have felt this in recent years as I see Lego's evolution, that it's almost taking away the creativity component and the self-made engineered structures, and funneling kids more towards building things that are already designed for them. They just build them. And, not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I'd like to hear your take on that, because I think Legos are what we most readily identify with when we think about building toys.
Correct, yeah. Legos and many toys have evolved to the point of building specific sets with lengthy step-by-step instructions. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with that. At the same time, what we're leaving behind in focusing only on that is the creative side, the ability to imagine something and then go and build it. And the problem solving, the challenge, and the end result of self-esteem and satisfaction of creating something on your own is lost.
Right. Okay, so it's Brackitz. I want to spell it for our listeners, Brackitz. If you'd like to look it up, it's just brackitz.com. And because, of course, this is all very visual and we're radio, so that's our limitation. But we're not limited by our creativity. And maybe you could, because you're probably better at explaining what it looks like, what it is, and what it does, just tell our listeners.
Sure. Well, imagine a regular block that we're all familiar with, the wood blocks when we were kids. And then imagine an open channel where you can connect the block. And what's different about Brackitz and other toys is it's not a snap. It's not a difficult connection to make. You can insert the block into that channel, which is a friction sort of channel, at any point along the block, anywhere along the block, as well as at just about any amount. So that leaves open the whole perimeter of the block, and the users can adjust the blocks in any angle and shape that they want, which allows them to build in any direction that they want, not be limited by specific, in or out snap to connections or set distances.
Yeah, so you can have a really steep roof by doing an angle like this, and you can have a flat roof by doing an angle like that,
right?
That sort of thing.
You can also cantilever complex structures off of a base structure that you might have. And on your website, again, brackitz.com, if you want to see what these pieces look like. There was a video, I believe it was at one of the Primrose schools, possibly in Chicago. Is that where it was?
I think it was in Denver.
Denver.
Primrose in Denver.
Okay, and you now have 300 of their schools that are using your products.
300 schools, 1,200 classrooms or so.
Yeah.
Wow.
And in this particular video, there were a whole bunch of kids that were playing, and some of the kids were on their own, playing on their own with the products. But several of them were playing collaboratively with these other kids. They're sort of playing together, and they're kind of designing this thing, and they're kind of nudging each other for, what can we do with this? And that was kind of cool to watch that, because the structures that they were building, and they appeared to be maybe 5 years old, 6 years old.
5 to 6, yeah.
Yeah. These weren't just base things. They were kind of, rolling their own and trying some things. And it was fascinating.
Well, that was a wonderful surprise. I tested this product in schools and classrooms quite a bit. And because the pieces are big, and many toys today have gotten smaller and smaller, our pieces are really big, but they're also durable. So once your structure gets outside of your personal space, kids then become willing to share, to build together, to take their structure, let's say an airport, and connect it to another kid's structure, let's say a zoo, and now you have a city going on.
Yeah.
And that collaborative nature, it still gives me goosebumps to talk about it, because all of a sudden kids are sharing and designing and building all on their own and together. It's a wonderful feeling, something all of us need to do more of.
Yeah. I was taking a look at this, Lynn, a couple of days ago, and I was thinking back to a dinner that I had this summer with a couple of guys from NASA. One of the guys was responsible for all of their satellites, and the other guy was responsible for the International Space Station. And these two guys, I'd say they're in their late 30s, had so much enthusiasm, and it struck me that they were just like kids. And I was wondering if we had pulled a couple of these boxes out and threw them on the table, because these guys were constantly sketching, constantly moving their hands, trying to describe different things with these satellites and things that were going on at the International Space Station. And I thought, they'd get a kick out of something like this.
Yeah, we've had lots of comments from retired engineers that are now grandparents to existing engineers, and say, this is a really fun thing to play with. As an adult, as a parent or a grandparent, we've even done corporate sort of breakout and leadership sessions, with executives to get out of their comfort zone, to build and create and think about innovation.
It's really great.
What are you building over there, Lynn?
Can I stop asking questions, because I just want to build over here for a little while?
Lynn wants to play.
It's really great. I wanted to ask you, Chris, about innovation, about kids, their access to technology, and the fact that they know how to, as little digital natives, they know how to design in a two-dimensional, I suppose you would call it. Well, on the computer. They use design programs, they use drawing programs. And I'm wondering if you've seen, because you have kids of that age, and because you're in the mode of design here, how has it shaped their ability to go headlong into something that's tactile? They're so used to doing it on the computer.
Yeah, this is a big topic, of course, with iPads and digital devices in our kids' hands. My thought is that anytime a kid is able to be creative, to solve problems, whether that's involved in designing on a computer or sitting down with paper and scissors and crayons and tape, you're engaged in problem solving, doing something new. If it's prescribed, whether that's a physical toy, very prescribed on the table, or a prescribed video game, now we're talking about eliminating that creativity. And of course, computers and games are very much prescribed, so there tends to be more of that on devices, and it captivates kids, and us as parents say, hey, they're quiet, great, it works for me. And creating is maybe not as quiet or not as clean, because you leave scraps of paper and pieces of tape. But that, I believe, is a missing component in our kids' lives today.
Very interesting. And, we do encourage them to go outside and be physical and do lots of sports. But again, you're trying to bridge this gap and fill this void. We don't often pass the time that they're 6 or 7 years old, ask them to pick up this and say, go play with your Brackitz. But now we can.
Yes, absolutely. And you could do it with your kids. They're big enough, and the satisfaction is really wonderful when you build something big on the coffee table, and it's bigger than your kid, and the whole family's engaged in building a new tower, or we invented a space station, and we built it together. That's a great feeling.
How many times have you been to the toy show in New York City?
I have been 4 times.
Okay.
Toy Fair in New York.
So the first time you went to the toy fair, you're probably under the radar. You're out there just sort of scoping it out and introducing your product and everything. Now, up to 4 times, are you on people's radar? Have companies figured out a way to get around the patents that you hold? Do you have competitors that are looking at this in different ways?
Well, every year we go, and every show we go to, we're less and less, under the radar. We're more visible, and people begin to see the vision of what the product offers and our new products that are coming out. And in that, draws attention to people seeing your success. They want to maybe take your success or be part of your success, which on the one hand is a wonderful compliment. Because they see the value in it, the customer has seen the value in it, the toy buyers have seen the value in it. So I'll take that as a compliment. At the same time, we do have patents, and we do enforce them strongly. And those that are going to cross that boundary, they will hear from us.
Right, exactly. Well, so have you seen any competitors yet?
There have been a few. Their product, I'm not really worried about it because their product is not as open and flexible, and I don't think the quality is as high.
Okay.
So,
what are some of the fundamental challenges that you have right now in getting your product in people's hands?
Well, I think the message of open-ended play and not prescribed play, it's a harder message to convey, that you're going to get your child a toy that allows them to explore things that we can't put on the package. But that is the glory of their imagination and their own innovation. So that's one part of it. And then I would say, international distribution is a big factor for us. And coming up with new products, we're doing that all the time, but it's a challenge to come up with quality products, year after year.
Yeah.
it seems as though the last building products that I purchased for my kids who are now in college, and I might add, would love to do this. They're coming home, so I think I need to get one of these sets for Thanksgiving. Is interlocking with magnets, and
Yes.
and I can't think of what they're called now, but I'm sure you know about every product that's out there. So why did you decide to go with a particular way of interlocking that you do, which is just kind of fitting, right? Fitting
Correct.
into.
Yeah, we looked into magnets at one point early on in our story, and first of all, they're quite expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, they prescribe the connection. You can only connect where there are two magnets. So imagine two squares, a magnet in each corner of the square. You can connect them at their corners, but that's where it stops.
Right.
A Brackitz block, as a rectangle, can connect anywhere along the rectangle, and I can adjust it as I go. So the ability to form my creation to my imagination is wildly more open-ended and creative than any snap-to connection.
Yeah. Okay. This is making sense, especially as I'm building my whatever it is here. As your building can evolve, your structure, your design can evolve as you go along, which really makes your creativity explode. You know, I don't like the walls that are actually this high. I think it would look better if I lowered the walls a bit. So all you have to do is slide the joint along the rectangle.
Correct. You can manipulate it. And
Yeah.
Lincoln Logs you mentioned earlier, they lock together at a certain joint.
Point. Yeah.
Tinker Toys also are a fixed sort of connection, where Brackitz are not that at all.
I can't tell you why, but I never lined up with Lincoln Logs for some reason.
Well, it was very limited what you could do. You
Yeah.
couldn't make a parallelogram-shaped building.
Exactly. So you have an angel investor. What's the end play? Would you like to continue to be private? Would you like to be acquired? Would you like to go public?
Oh gosh, it's really hard to forecast that far out. Right now, we're very much focused on continuing to build our line in the STEM area, engineering, physics, basic mechanics, and fun, imaginative play. And I could keep doing that for a very long time. So it's hard for me to see how that road stops.
Yeah, because the Amazon relationship is going to get your product out in front of a lot of different people, and I'm sure people go to Amazon just to see what's hot. I mean, you can look at trends that way.
Sure, and Amazon has done very well for us, as has Barnes & Noble and Target.
Okay, all right. What has most surprised you in your business as you started this, since you've started this?
Well, I think any small business owner would say just the challenges of being a small business. It's you have this idea and it's a great idea and things look grand, and its day-to-day business is difficult. But I have to tell you that it is a thrill, and it is so fun to be creating a valuable product and to work with kids and see the shine on their face after they build something they're proud of.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you been surprised, for example, these hundreds of schools that Brackitz are now in? I think it's interesting to see educators and how they can build an entire unit or entire learning model around a product. And we see it a lot, but has that been something like that you've been surprised about in STEM education, how they take your product and then build a whole lesson plan around it?
Well, I'm not really surprised.
Or did you design the
I
learning?
designed the product for that purpose.
Okay.
It came out of a classroom setting, and I intentionally designed the product to have big pieces, to be able to fit in a setting where multiple kids could play at the same time, build big, stable structures in a messy environment. A classroom is kind of a messy environment. Most toys don't work in that area, while also keeping it fun for play at home. The colors are gender neutral. It's imaginative, fun play. So I started out with that as an intent, and we actually have our own curriculum, and then other schools and other groups have integrated us into robotics curriculums as the fundamental steps, as well as the Primrose curriculum. So I'm thrilled, and I'm surprised. I'm surprised with the success, but not surprised that they're doing it. That was our intent.
Talk about the local production, and I understand it's all Utah. It's made here. Your employees are here. Why did you decide to go with that model? Was it particular, or it just happened to be easier than to get these built in or produced in China, for example?
Well, there are some advantages to staying, close, and those are the ability to deliver in smaller quantities when you're starting out and solve problems, quickly and rapidly, which is very much an innovative kind of process. You can't go too far without circling back and solving those problems. Utah is very much a business-friendly state. It's good to distribute from here. There's a lot of folks that do injection molding and that kind of work.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Is there a carryover into, for example, our recreation industry with injection molding for ski boots and things like that? Why do people do that here?
I'm not really sure. I don't have a good sense of that, but there are a lot of outdoor products. Medical devices are also pretty common in Utah, and there's a number of good injection molders and tool makers to make the tools that produce the parts.
There's big trash cans, and there's ski boots, and there's all this big stuff, right? But small pieces, there's a tremendous market for that, and injection molding companies need to be very precise and really need to work with the right tool and die makers and those sorts of things. And I was actually in that business for a while, and it's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fun to see a tool come into place and see your parts pop out.
Yeah. So we're here with Chris Cochella, who is the founder of Brackitz. And again, this is a fascinating company, bridging a gap between traditional stacking blocks for young kids and interconnecting blocks. Go to Brackitz.com to take a peek at what these products are. And Lynn and I are having fun playing with them, and we want to thank you so much for being with us this morning. Lynn, do you have another question?
I do, and I'm blanking. I don't know why. I've been in there a million times, but the toy store at Kimball Junction, can I find these there?
Yeah, J.W. Allen
Thank
and
you.
Mega Genius Supply.
Oh, and Mega